Anyways, sorry. Uh, Matching features. I told yesterday, doctor was there, and I told her about matching feature questions. Let me first show you a matching features type question, and then I'll come back and we'll start this topic. In IELTS exam, you generally get a very lengthy passage in section 3. Okay, and this section 3 generally contains a topic about or you can say a topic about multiple theories. Like there might be a discussion about why people or why employees on work behave in a particular way, and in that they may give, okay, according to so and so psychologist, this is a behavior like this. According to so and so person, the behaviors, there are general discussion in which many scientists or researchers are referred. This may be even like this topic might be about paint work, okay, the artwork.
Okay.
Sorry. And after, in the beginning they may give some history about paint work, like it used to be oil paints, and then camera came into, and the paint work, the hand paint work stopped and camera took over and so on. But and after that they may talk about Picasso or other famous artists and their work. And in this type of questions, then they just write name of those artists or scientists here, like like you can see in this block, researchers, and then there are 3 names. Then you are
Okay.
given some questions, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, maybe 4, maybe 6. I'm sorry. And
Yes.
they just mention a theory in a paraphrase form, not in an exact form as written in the passage, but they give some information, and then they ask you, this kind of work relates to which of these researchers. Okay, you getting it?
Okay.
Right. So now
Yes.
this is another kind of matching information type questions, or you can say these are matching features type questions. So matching feature tasks are used with reading passage that contain theories or comments about different people, places, years, and things. For these tasks, the different options are listed in a box, and you need to match them to the questions, right? Uh,
Okay.
right. Just for Assalamu alaikum. Yeah, I'm good. I'm connecting a class right now. Can we talk later, please? I'm sorry. Thank you. Bye bye. Okay. I'm sorry, guys. Actually, people don't know my class timings, new class timings yet. So, right, for these tasks, different options are listed in a box, and you need to match them to the questions. So, some questions you may need to match a person to a study or an action, rather than a theory or opinion. Like I told you about Picasso's example. Let's say there's a passage in which they say that, okay, Mr. Abdurrahman is a very famous artist of Somalia, and he is very good at oil painting. And then Dr. Shumaila from Pakistan, she is very good artist, and she is very good at let's say water painting or watercolors, right? So now in the exam, in the options, they may ask you, uh, this person did oil paints and so on. So now that is an
Okay.
action. That is not a theory, right?
Okay.
Now the people mentioned in the passage may appear in several different sections. Remember this thing.
Okay.
In your passage, if this is a passage, they may talk about Abdurrahman's work here. Then they may talk about Dr. Shamala's work here. Then they may talk about Shakil's work here. And then again, they may talk about Abdurrahman's work. And then they again, may talk about Shakil's work. So the name of that person will appear multiple times in the passage.
Okay.
You need to
Okay.
scan the whole passage. And if you remember my one of my lectures in which I told you that there are some questions in which you need to find the answers. Sorry, you need to read the whole passage and your answers are scattered throughout the passage. Do you remember that?
Yes.
Okay, and this
Hmm.
is one such kind in which your answers will be scattered throughout the passage, because names of
Okay.
those people will be scattered throughout the passage, obviously. So some of the people, now this is very interesting. Some of the people in the list may be distractors, and you may not need to use all the letters. Now this is very, very tricky thing. Actually, it really confuses sometimes. Now let me show you one thing here. Let's say there were four people in the passage. There were four people in the passage, and they have given you four names here. D. And D is, let's say, I call it Abbott, right? Abbott was again another person, and his name was there in the passage, let's say. Now, this name is extra, remember. This might be option
Okay.
B, this might be option A. This is only a distractor. So you have
Okay.
to focus which of these, this information matches with which of the researchers. So it is not necessary at the end of, question 5, you may say, well, option D is not used. So it means, and option A is used 2 times. So don't get scared of it. Generally people, what they do, like if this is A and this is A, they will say, oh, that means I'm wrong here. This 4 relates to D.
Mm.
But
Okay.
that A, one option may be simply a distractor. So don't worry if any of the options is not used even once. Clear?
Okay. Yeah.
Now, some of the questions are based on the comments made about the researchers. Again, it is not about the researcher's opinion, himself or herself. It may be about the comments made about that researcher. For example, if I say that, well, Hertzberg, presented 2 factors, motivational theory, and blah blah blah. Now,
Okay.
I may pass a comment about this, or that means I means author may pass a comment, or let's say there's another researcher whose her name is Dr. Shumaila, and she said that, well, to my opinion, Herzberg's theory doesn't relate to practical scenarios these days.
Okay.
So now your question may relate to comment about Herzberg theory. So answer to that will be
Okay.
Dr. Shumaila, not Herzberg himself. Clear?
Okay.
You getting it, doctor?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Are you doing some other work?
No,
No.
sir.
No.
I
Okay.
am basically tired. Very.
Sorry. Okay. Okay. Like you are sounding like you are just, away from your computer. Sorry.
No.
No. Okay. Now, I hope you guys have read this passage. There are 3 names:
Mm.
Pagel, Lieberman, and Gray. I hope you've learned it and you have studied it and you understood it. But let me summarize different things uh,
Okay.
about the. Let me give you some idea of the passage. This
Okay.
passage is about findings of 2 different studies. Okay, and those findings relates to or those findings gives a very similar conclusion. Those studies or research works were totally different, taking place entirely in a different context by different people, and they had no idea about each other's work. But you can say coincidentally both of these studies resulted in the same conclusion. Okay,
Mm. Okay.
in one of the studies there was a person, his name was Lieberman. He was studying uh, about some regular verbs of English. Okay, so I'm sorry, irregular verbs. Now, can you tell me which verbs are irregular verbs?
Speak, spoken, something like this.
Yeah, the verbs for which we have to learn the three forms, like past and past participle, present, past and past participle form. We have to learn them by heart, and they don't follow the ed rule.
Yeah.
Okay, so those are irregular verbs. So they were studying 177 irregular verbs of English language, and then they you know they observed that some of those irregular verbs became regular over the period of time,
Okay.
like maybe in a century or so. Then they found that all those verbs which were used very frequently, they didn't change their shape. But those verbs which were not used very frequently changed their shape earlier than verbs which were used very frequently. That means more frequently a word is used, the its shape will not change for a longer time.
Okay.
Fine. So this was the conclusion of their study. That if we use a word frequently, it is more likely that it will not change its shape over the period of time. Like we know in English, yes was pronounced as ye, and no was pronounced as nay,
No.
right? But now it's yes and no. Okay, so they change their shape over the period of time. Similarly, when I was a kid, actually I learned, now I say learned, Learned. But when I was child, I learned it like learned, nt,
Learn.
right?
Learn.
So say, yeah.
Yeah.
So it has changed its shape, and now I find that learned word is used most of the time. Got it? So this was one study made by Lieberman, and that conclusion was very good. I mean, very, very informative. That well, if we use a word frequently, it will not change its shape. Now, there was another person, his name was Pagel, and he was actually studying, uh, Indo-European languages, multiple languages. And in
Okay.
those languages, he was studying that, well, there are some words which are used in different languages, okay, but have some similar sounds.
Okay.
Like if I say father in this is an English word, and in Persian it is known as pither, right?
Okay.
And mother is known as mother. You see,
Yes.
so he was studying like that, that the word to can be, there are different words like duo, due, duex. In different languages, to is called as duo, duex, or almost similar sounds,
Okay.
right? Now, during this study, he also found the same result, that if we don't use a word more, too frequently, it is more likely that it will change its shape. So these are two men.
Okay.
Then there was another person. His name was, he was from New Zealand, and his name was Russell Gray. He commented on this work or these findings. Clear? So this was the summary of the
Yeah.
text, and I hope you already understood it that way. And if you didn't, then it's allowing for you. So now let's start and let's see who did which of these works. We are able to recognize certain words used by people in other cultures. Can you tell me who said that?
Legal.
Lieberman, Pagel, or Russell Gray? Now for this, let me, make your job simpler. There are certain words which give you a lot of hints. Like if I say, this person, whosoever was this person, he was studying a history of, 8,000 years old history of Indo-European language speakers. That means multiple languages, isn't it?
Yes,
Yes.
sir.
Fine. So now different languages here, it's again written here. So now this thing is a good indicator that, well, who was this person?
Hazel.
He was Pagel, right? Now Pagel, now let me first underline where Pagel is mentioned. Pagel was mentioned here somewhere in the beginning. I know where it is. Now here, Mark Pagel here, if you see.
Yes, sir.
And then there was another person, Lieberman here.
Hmm.
Then Pagel again here, and then Russell Gray here. You see, Pagel has come twice.
Yeah.
Okay, so now this is a good, like, sorry. Okay, now 87 different Indo-European languages. So now that's understood that he studied different languages, while as Lieberman only studied 177 irregular verbs of English language only,
Hmm.
right?
Okay.
So, uh, what was the, no, can you tell me the answer? Sorry, I've already pointed it out. We were able to
Yes, sir.
recognize certain words used from other cultures. That means multiple cultures. So, Pagel, eh?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Regardless of what happens in the world, there appear to be fixed rules that govern the way words alter over time. We'll talk on this because, uh, you know, the related sentence in the passage is very complicated. You may not understand it. We'll talk on this later. Now, for the time being, just skip it and we'll move on to number 3. Words that don't follow a standard pattern will remain that way if they are used often.
Lieberman.
Never.
Lieberman, why? Which standard pattern is being mentioned here?
Hmm?
Which standard pattern is being mentioned here?
Standard letters.
Yeah. Words that don't follow a standard pattern. Which standard pattern he's talking about?
Irregular.
Sorry?
Standard pattern maybe is a regular.
Regular, well done,
And
well done. Ed. The standard pattern is you just add ed and it will give you the past and past participle forms.
hmm.
But the verbs which don't follow this standard pattern, that means irregular verbs. Well done,
Yeah.
Abdurrahman. Well done. Doctor, got it?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Eat. Now, certain words have kept a similar sound across many years and many countries. Now, if you see, I just pointed out that there was a research which talked about 8,000 years, and it talked
Yes.
about Indo-European. That means many countries.
Yes, sir.
So again, that is Pagel
Yes.
actually, right?
Yes.
Then we focused on the historical changes that have occurred in one particular language. Again, one particular language.
Lieberman.
Lieberman talked about only English language. That's it. So now this number 3. Can you tell me the answer and then I will explain the sentence that is written in the passage that relates to this discussion?
Lieberman.
Which sentence of Lieberman you are referring to? Can you tell me in the passage, please?
Third, third. Okay. So, sir, one, two, three, fourth paragraph.
Mm-hmm.
So, they mentioned like in other words, they found that more irregular verb is used, the longer it will remain irregular.
Yeah, so where it is written, no matter what happens in the word,
No matter what.
like if you see in the given option, there's a sentence, and that
Yes,
sentence
sir.
says that, sir, this one, sorry,
Please don't follow us
regardless of
silently.
what happens in the word.
Okay.
So where it is written? It's not that actually. Abdurrahman, any idea?
Yes. No, I don't have it. I
Okay.
didn't read the passage.
Okay, okay. Now let's read the last line. Last line in inverted commas.
Okay.
Despite of, I will not tell you the meanings right now. Okay? But
Okay.
I want you guys to just take out or draw some meaning. Despite
Okay.
all the vagaries and the contingencies of human history, it seems that there are remarkable regularities in the process of language change. Despite of something, that means despite of something that is happening in the world. Throughout the human history, like Arabs, they just rose, they defeated the world powers of that time, the Persian and Romans, and then Romans came, then others came, and so on. So these vagaries or these disasters or changes had been happening throughout the history. But regardless of this, despite of whatever happened, the change of language followed almost similar process or similar rule,
Okay.
right? Try to make it some meaning, like despite all the, what is this? I told you yesterday, doctor, if you remember, despite all
Yes,
means
sir.
regardless of whatever happened, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
Doctor agreed? And
Yes.
Abdurrahman,
Yes, sir.
despite of, regardless means despite of whatever happened. So even this single hint can be very helpful. Okay,
Exactly.
now if you see, read this, regardless of what happens in the world, there appear to be fixed rules that govern the way words
Okay.
alter over time. There remains fixed rules, and here it says, sorry,
Make it complete.
yeah, sorry, regularities in the process of language change. Got it?
Okay.
Okay. So
Yes.
now
Yes.
this is again another topic that I want to share with you. Now, before I move on, I want you guys to, oh yeah, just skip this part. This is not required. Okay, these two exercises are not for you. Now, let me tell you one thing here. All of those who would be watching this recording, for them as well, uh, I want to tell you a very important test taking technique or tip, actually, not technique, a test taking tip which will be very useful in crisis. God forbid, God forbid that you enter into that crisis. But let's say if that happens, God forbid again, then you must not panic. Remember, in exam you must not panic. The moment you will panic, you are going to make disasters. Even if you made,
Okay.
let's say, 5 questions wrong back to back, even then don't panic, because if you will
Okay.
panic, that will make that will lead to 10 mistakes. But if you don't panic, these 5 mistakes can be controlled, they can be covered up, okay, or they can be made up.
Okay.
So anyways, now ideally speaking, let me first write section 1, section 2, or passage 1, passage 2, whatever you want to call it, section 3. So now section 1, section 2, and section 3. We know that almost there are 13 to 14 questions here. Then there are 13 to 14 again here. And then there are 13 to 14 questions here. So now let's say I'm assuming that first two contain 13 questions. Sorry, the first one contained 14 questions and the other two contained 13 each. And the standard time, because I told you the first section is comparatively easier than second and third section. Second section is tougher than section 1 but easier than section 3. I hope you know that. And
Yes.
section 3 is the toughest one. So based on that, I recommend that you try to finish section 1 in 18 minutes. That's an ideal scenario, but generally, people finish it in 20 minutes. And this is 20 minutes. And here you may spare, like you save 2 minutes from here and you use those 2 minutes here. Okay. Now
Okay.
let's say because of some reason, and that is very natural, and this happens sometimes. So it's not, it must not generate any extra pressures. Let's say you finish section 1 in 21 minutes because of any reason. Okay. And you take about 22 minutes on section 2 because you were slow.
Okay.
Ideally speaking, uh, section 3 should have taken 22 minutes, but now it is, only 17 minutes are left. Okay, just to make it more worse, let's say I'm making it 22 and making it 23, and here now you are left with 15 minutes.
Okay.
So right from the beginning, you know that, well, you are short of time for section 3.
Three.
In this case, you should be aware of that which questions you need to attempt first. For
Okay.
example, sorry, if there are questions in which you have to write sentence completion, right? That are fill in the blanks type questions. There's another
Okay.
question that is summary completion. And
Okay.
there are two types of summary completion. In one type, some options are given, and in other type, there are no options. Oh my God, sorry. I've increased the font somehow, and I don't know how to decrease it now. Let me check if I can text. Okay, guys, please bear with it now.
And
Uh,
okay.
Something happened, I clicked and dragged something, and I ended up in this. Now, let's say this is summary completion, and there's another question, and that is matching features, or let's say true false questions.
Okay.
Okay. Now, for these two type of questions, you will have to read from the passage. You
Okay.
cannot write any word like just based on your random guess.
Okay.
You will have to read the passage. That means this is time taking.
Okay.
This is also time taking, right? But true, in case of true false question, even if you are left with 1 minute and there are 5 true false questions, so that this is kind of question in which you can just write, like if this is question number 23, sorry, 36, 30, 37, 38, 39, and 40 question. You can just write true for all these questions without reading the passage, because you are only left with 30 seconds or 1 minute, because of your poor time management in the beginning. So what you do, you can write true here. So this will make at least 2 or 3 questions correct. So instead of
Okay.
losing 5 marks, you will actually lose only 3 or 4 marks, 3 marks at the most,
Okay.
right? But let's say you started attempting 2 false questions first. Now you are done with it. And then you attempted sentence completion. And now last 4 questions are summary completion questions. So in last 30 seconds or in last 1 minute, you cannot make any guess.
Okay.
Got it? So be careful about, be vigilant about this thing.
Okay.
Oh,
If you reach at section 3 with a lesser time, then please decide which questions you have to attempt first. But another warning here, and that warning is, I have intentionally chosen true false questions. Generally speaking, true false questions, they follow a sequence, and they will be from if these are the starting of the section, like if this is question number 27, that means section 3 is starting here. This is question number. Then you will find its answer right in the beginning, and you will find the summary completion and sentence completion questions answers later. So you have to be vigilant about that. If you skip this part, true false question, and you are directly jumping to summary completion, then you have to be vigilant that you may not find the answers right in the beginning. You got it,
okay. Yeah.
doctor?
Yes, ma'am.
Just a minute.
Hello?
Yeah, hello.
Yeah,
Just a minute.
yes, got it.
Okay. So this is a very important technique. People, they just start attempting sentence completion, then summary completion, and now 1 minute is left. Oh, sorry, true, false, and then summary completion. And last 1 minute, they just leave 5 questions unanswered. Don't do that. First of all, please
Okay.
don't enter into this situation. you know, Try to complete first 2 sections in time. But let's say, God forbid, if you enter, then act smartly. Now,
Okay.
Okay.
let's start our next lecture, actually the last lecture. Okay. Understanding longer pieces of text to answer multiple choice question. Now, again, sorry, let me first show you some questions, because whatever I said earlier, let me first conclude it and then I'll come back, right?
Okay.
Hmm. Now, here's the test. If I find such questions, I will show. Let me open 2 or 3 other texts, right? Okay. Let's start with this. 125 or even 100. Now let me go to section 3. Now here is reading passage 3, and these are the questions, right? Sorry, these are the paragraphs A, B, C, D, E, F, and longer, and then gross is given to you. The first set of questions says, reading passage 3 has 6 paragraphs, A to F. Which of the paragraph contain following information? Now these are matching information to question. And ideally speaking, our strategy should be like, we'll read paragraph A and then we will answer this, and we will see if there's any other question that I can attempt, right? But
Okay.
this is kind of a question that for which I can make a random guess as well. Like, let's say, instead of leaving everything blank, I can write randomly A, B, C, D. Maybe some of my answers would be correct, right?
Okay.
But and again, now this kind of question, which 2 of these points are made by the writer of the text about this? Again, this is a kind of question in which you can just pick any one of them, like C and D. That's it.
Okay.
And here, again, there's a kind of question in which you can choose any 2 of these. So,
Okay.
and this last question contains fill in the blanks. So you cannot attempt these questions without reading the passage.
Okay.
So this question should be your first, worry. So in this case, what you can do, you can read the heading, the